It'd be like you're bringing one of our patients to our facility and they might need some help with equipment or something.
You're now receiving these messages, you try to reach out to them. Is it at least a decent amount of money that you're getting? I mean, we're talking about a medical ride at this point from a clinic or something.
I hate to say it, but I feel like sometimes they're set up just to screw you.
With these rides, there's no chance of gratuity unless they
Oh,
were to
yeah,
give you cash, but they're
absolutely
it's
not.
not going to
It's not
happen.
going to happen. But my real concern is, as a driver, the liabilities that we're incurring by taking these rides should something happen.
Today we've got Tim on the show. He's going to be talking about what's going on in his area, specifically about some different medical trips that he's receiving in Lyft and Uber. We'll let him get into more detail about that. So, Tim, how you doing today?
I'm doing all right.
Good. Thanks
How are
for.
you?
I'm doing well. Thanks for being here with us today. I see we've got a little green screen image in the background. Looks like maybe a downtown area. What's that? What's that about?
That is the downtown area of where I live, where it really gets hopping a little bit during the busier hours. There's probably 10 or 12 restaurants and 10 or 12 bars right in a little 1 mile strip there. And they have it decorated up for Christmas every year and turns into a little lively scene since the area I live in here in the Central Valley. The city's a little over 100,000 people. It's not a huge city. We're south of Fresno, which is much larger, about 1 million people. Like I said, it gets to a hopping little area. This little town that I have actually has 4 colleges.
So that keeps you
And
busy for sure.
it does. It keeps me busy. So,
Gotcha. Well, now, Tim, you had mentioned to us about these medical rides that you get through Lyft and Uber. Can you tell us a little bit about those?
okay. Well, what we do, you know, it comes up on the screen as a regular ride and you'll accept it. And when you accept it, you immediately get a message from a third party, not the rider, saying various things. But it'd be like you're bringing one of our patients to our facility. They put B, it's B dash leg ride, which I'm thinking that it's probably means they have a bad leg, and they might need some help with equipment or something. Then it'll say you can't deviate from the route. No escorts a lot of times.
Mm.
However, when you go to actually pick somebody up, and it says the rider can be contacted through the phone. A lot of times, in my case, it's people going for treatment to methadone clinics and different clinics. When you try to reach them, you can't. You try to reach them through the phone, and their phone's disconnected, whatnot. So it ends up being a waste of time for a driver.
You're now receiving these messages, you try to reach out to them. Is it at least a decent amount of money that you're getting? I mean, we're talking about a medical ride at this point from a clinic or something.
No, they're they're usually just like a short trip or just a regular. You're paid as a regular driver on these trips, like any other ride. Another issue that I have with it is that this third party that's getting involved here, it's like sometimes they're medical transport, or I guess from what I spoke to a nurse, an insurance company, and so I looked up the California the laws pertaining to getting a medical transport license. To get one of those licenses, you have to get a business license through the city that you're at. You also have to go through the state. Your drivers have to have training on CPR, first aid, drug tested regularly, if you're going to be part of a medical transport company. What I'm seeing is that these medical transport companies, probably in order to increase profits, is to a lot of these calls, they can call an Uber or Lyft to come do the job for them, to do the actual work for them. They are probably getting contracted or won a bid through contract from the state or county that you're in, and they're getting paid, medical transport rates, which is much higher. But here we are, we're drivers, we're out here doing the job, the actual work, and we're the ones taking the responsibility and the liability in these cases.
Yeah.
which that seriously worries me right now.
Yeah.
So
No, absolutely. So you're saying that these medical transport companies are getting the bids, they're charging the rate, which is probably a lot for a medical transport, but only paying for a Lyft or Uber, which is $10, $15, but they're making a lot more than that. What did they do for the drivers? So has Uber and Lyft, have they sent you anything to opt in to these and send you even a video or anything for any type of training for these type of rides?
now, just recently, I did receive a opt-in, opt-out for Lyft for doing some extra, to help. But it says basically to help somebody that might have a wheelchair or a walker and help them from the house to. You're actually supposed to go to the front door and provide assistance for them to get to your car, and then and they're offering $4 extra if you opt in for this. Myself, I have not opted in for it, but yet I still am getting these B-leg rides, is what I'm calling them. And I'm not sure yet if Lyft is going to make those rides part of that medical assistance program or not. It doesn't appear. It looks like it might be something even further separate. I don't mind. I mean, just as a driver and a compassionate person, I don't mind helping. I have a wonderful couple that they're older, they're blind, they're hilarious. They're some of the nicest people you ever meet. But they have walkers and they need a little help. And just as a person, I have no problem in helping them and not even being paid for it just because they're such great people. But I mean, they only call me maybe once a week or something like that. But these rides in the mornings, they will come one after another for 2, 3 hours at a time. They're masked as being a regular ride. But as I said, as soon as you accept it, you'll get a message claiming it can't be deviated from the route. You're picking up one of their passengers, one of their patients. You're either bringing them to the facility or taking them back home from the facility.
And just so we have an idea, because you said that these are just typical rides, they're even short rides, how much are you making on each of these rides?
Anywhere from $4 to $15. It used to be maybe $35 or so if I was driving them from Visalia 30 miles to Fresno, if I happen to be going that way. But they're not paying well.
Hmm.
They're honestly, the rates aren't there. And out here where I'm at, it's honestly, I am, as we've seen on some of Sergio and Chris's shows in the past, I'm a USDA cherry picker. I mean, I
Hmm.
will cherry pick because, as they've said, we have to treat this as a business. We're an independent contractor, therefore, we have to treat it as a business and look out for ourselves and look out for our business. We can't accept things that are going to cost us. We have to actually make a profit. Otherwise, it's just not worth it to drive.
Yeah, absolutely. And with these rides, there's no chance of gratuity unless they
Oh,
were to give you cash, but
absolutely
it's
not.
not going to
It's not
happen.
going to
Then
happen.
you had mentioned, Tim, about even trying to contact one of the riders. So you've been told, you get the message from Lyft or Uber and they said you can call them or text them, but in reality, how does that work?
Yeah, it's the third party that's saying that they can be contacted. But then when you try to call through the app, which that's what you're supposed to do things according to their TOS, you'll either try to call or message. It'll say this person's phone is disconnected. This person's phone, I don't know, it's been changed or something. They're not allowed to accept calls or different things like that. So probably what I've seen is 80-90% of the time, you can't actually get a hold of anybody once you've actually reached the destination to pick them up, unless they are actually there. Which is kind of funny because I had one that I had to pick up. She wasn't there. I canceled it. She actually called me back like an hour and a half later and said, well, the ride was scheduled for 10 o'clock. The ride that I was sent to was at about 8:45 in the morning. So the 5 minutes is going to be, you're waiting 5 minutes, nobody shows up. You try to call, can't get a hold of anybody. So you just cancel the ride and move on. I had her call up and tell me that I was going to come pick her up at 10 o'clock because that's when she scheduled it, or she was going to call Lyft and get me fired,
Wow.
which I kind of went, okay,
Yeah.
go
Okay.
ahead.
Yeah.
I
You didn't
didn't
do
know what to
any.
say. I'm
Yeah.
like,
You didn't do anything wrong at that point.
I didn't do anything wrong. I wasn't
That's
in the wrong. So it's,
So, what are some of your strategies? Because you said that these come in for hours, especially early morning. A lot of times that's when we're trying to get things like airport rides. I don't know if you have an airport in your area or people going to and from work. So, that is a good time to make some money. But these are kind of, it sounds like getting in the way of that. What are some of the strategies and things that you've found to get around getting these rides?
well, now that they're actually showing you where the rides are going and coming from. Luckily for me, in my case, they're all pretty much one spot on the map, one area in the map. And basically, if the ride comes up and it's pointing in that area, I just won't accept it. I won't look at it. So, I mean, that's, you have to pick it out, but the majority of the time, that's the way. It'll either be coming from that area or ending in that area, right in that area of town, and that's kind of the only way. And that only comes from being an experienced driver. If you're an inexperienced driver that doesn't know better, you're gonna hit them over and over again, and you're gonna get hit with these rides, and they're gonna ask you. Your riders, if you do get them as a rider, they tend to want to stop somewhere. In my case, when I had them and I was dealing with them, it was usually the convenience store and the smoke shop. Go figure. Yeah, they just became more of a hassle than they were worth dealing with. So,
Hmm.
but my real concern is as a driver, the liabilities that we're incurring by taking these rides should something happen.
Yeah, and we as drivers a lot of times will think that that falls under Lyft or Uber, whichever one we're driving for at the time. But number one, this is medical transport, so we don't know the laws of California or anything like that. But also, if something happens during that trip, we don't have the CPR certification or the first aid certification like you mentioned. Like, how horrible would we feel if something happened because we don't know how to handle it?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. Because not every driver has gone through those. I know I have, but it was long in the past, and I'm no longer certified. Do I know how to? Yes. As under the Good Samaritan laws, you would probably be okay. But for a $4 ride, do you really even want to take the chance? That's the question I had to ask myself. I'm like, I really don't want to deal with this for a $4 ride and end up dealing with lawsuit after lawsuit coming from different directions.
Yeah, absolutely.
You
And like
know,
you said, you got to treat it like a business. A $4 ride for that level of anxiety, that level of concern, and really that's not even decent money if those things weren't a factor.
oh yeah, oh yeah. And I've sent Sergio a few. It gets pretty grim out here. I had one the other day from Visalia, where I'm at here, wanting me to take them to a medical center, I believe, in San Jose, and that's 201 miles. And Lyft was paying out 101. I think we worked it out. It was like 51 cents a mile for me to be in a vehicle under that circumstance for 3 hours. And what do you think the chances of a return trip
N-
are going to be?
Zero. Zero.
It's
Yeah,
going
you're
to
just
be
staying there
zero.
for the day for fun.
Yeah.
But yeah. So Tim, what would be your solution to this? To help drivers, to help Lyft and Uber, to help the passengers, the riders that are having these, what would your solution be?
Oh, you're just going to have to try to avoid them. You're just going to have to figure out your areas and do your best to avoid from getting caught into this. Or you're just going to have to cancel the ride if you're uncomfortable with it. I mean, a lot of times I feel uncomfortable in doing these rides. It's really the way their algorithm set up is just to, I hate to say it, but I feel like sometimes they're set up just to screw you. You might get, and I've had this happen so many times, you'll be doing a streak with Lyft and you'll finish the first two of the streak and everything's great. And then you'll get some crazy ride on the third one. So you're either giving up your streak and giving up your profit that you were planning on getting through the bonus, or you're accepting some crazy ride, which is going to end up eating up your profit in return trip or something else. I really don't know what the solution is here on this. I really don't think Lyft and Uber should be accepting these trips because I would think that they're taking on some liability themselves in this. If it's a medical transport, it needs to go to a medical transport. I mean, that's why medical transport companies are in business. If the medical transport company is actually using Uber and Lyft, I think there needs to be it needs to be looked into somehow. I don't know who's going to look into it or how they're going to look into it, whether it's the county or the state that you live in, and they look into their medical transport and say, hey, how are you taking the patients that we're contracting you with? How are they getting there? Are they actually getting there through drivers that are medically trained and follow it, or are you using Lyft and Uber to move these people around? That's questions that would have to go to someone else.
Well, we appreciate that. We appreciate all this information, especially of riders, not just in your area. I've gotten medical rides, not nearly as much as you, but I've gotten them in the past. And the concern for me was never the medical side because mine were typically like to doctor's appointments or things. But that's definitely a concern. But also, drivers aren't making money off of these rides. So as a
Yeah.
driver, we want to make sure we're treating it like a business and doing what we can to make the most amount of money. But also, even more important than money is our own safety and liability.
And I feel bad for the patients themselves. I have a little story here for you. I saved this one for you.
Oh,
The
appreciate
other
it.
day, the other day I was up in Fresno. I picked up one of these rides and I went to the house to go pick up the patient or the rider. I'm sitting there waiting and nice woman comes out of the house and she's all, "Hi, are you here to pick up so and so?" And I said, "Yes, I'm here to pick up this person." They're like, "I'm sorry, they've already left. You need to contact whoever you need to contact because you're the third Lyft rider that has tried to come and pick this person up." And I said, "Well, I don't understand." And she says, "I needed an actual medical transport van because he's in a wheelchair and his leg is cast straight out. So he could not even get into a vehicle, a normal Uber or Lyft vehicle. I'm pretty sure not a lot of people drive vans around to be able to give this poor guy a ride to the doctor's office." And it just blew my mind. I'm like, "Are you serious? They sent three different riders out here to come do this ride, and none of them could do the ride anyways because the poor person was, in a wheelchair with their leg cast straight out. They can't move it. And here we are. And even after he had been picked up, they were still trying to send Lyft riders or Uber drivers to go pick this guy up, even after he had already been picking up and taken. That one killed me.
Yeah,
I was rolling on that one. I
just
was like, I cannot believe this.
just an absolute waste, a waste of your time, their time, and really, if the medical transport company just did what they were supposed to do in the first place, it wouldn't be an issue.
Exactly, exactly. So that's one of those outrageous stories that it baffles the mind.
Yeah, absolutely
So
crazy. Well, thanks so much, Tim, for coming and talking with us today. We appreciate that. We're going to look out for that in our own area. It was really appreciative and informative to talk to you today. Thanks a lot.
thank you. I appreciate it.
So, a huge thank you to Tim for coming on to the show and really helping us to appreciate what's going on in his area and really a lot of other areas as well. Maybe you have medical rides that are going on in your area that you're seeing things like this, where you're picking up patients and dropping them off. But let us know in the comments if you've seen this, what you're doing to get around it, or if you're finding that they're actually beneficial to you and your business. The biggest takeaway I got from this interview was to run this like a business and to make sure that everything you do moves you forward in that aspect of this business and making as much money as possible. So great interview. We really appreciate Tim coming on the show. So let us know what you think of the show. Give us a thumbs up if you found this video helpful and subscribe to the channel. There's new episodes that come out every single week that help you make as much money as possible in as little time as possible. And stay safe out there, everyone.